shout out to all of our listeners and welcome to today's episode of Franchise Friday. So glad to have you. If you are coming back, welcome. And if you are new and this is your first Franchise Friday podcast that you're tuning into, welcome as well. Glad to have any new faces here. So my name is Melissa Pang. I am the member relationship strategist here at the Entrepreneur Source. And I have with me here Christopher Mallery, the co-founder at Top to Bottom Business Solutions. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Melissa.
Absolutely. So a little bit of background on Top to Bottom, then I'm going to let Chris give his story here. But Top to Bottom Business Solutions was founded in 2017 by Chris and his mom, actually, who recognized the need for high quality accounting services for both small businesses and franchisees after working in the fast-paced restaurant industry. And since then, since 2017, the T2B team has grown to include expert accountants and bookkeepers with years of experience in the industry. So again, welcome to the Franchise Friday podcast, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, so let's dive in to the background. Where did Top to Bottom Business Solutions come from? What's some of your background and just a few of those milestones that got you to where we are today?
Perfect. Yeah, I couldn't start the story without talking about my personal kind of upbringing. And I grew up in a family in the retail industry. My mom spent they were both my mother and my father in the retail space and management. So he traveled a lot, worked 90 hours a week. Just grew up in that world. My mom spent the second part of her career in accounting and doing accounting roles for larger corporate entities. And back in 2014, I was ready to change the pace of my life. I'd been in the restaurant industry for 15 years. Knew that's not where I wanted to be, and there's a lot of similarities between hospitality operations management, small business ownership, wearing lots of hats, being crazy busy, working 90 hours, never being able to turn your phone off, all those things. So met Alex in near 2010. My mom started working with him in an accounting firm in Charlotte. In 2014, fast forward, I was like, I just want out of this world. So I spent the better part of a year and a half trying to convince him that it would be a great option. And so he brought me on and mentored me until 2017 when my mom and I started T2B. And we were still working for him until 2019. And then that's when he decided to retire. So at that point in 2019, we brought the two companies together. We had 14 team members and serviced about 150 clients around the country, including one franchise system. That's the EnviroMaster brand that was in our stuff. And so they kind of helped us pioneer our path. And then fast forward till now, we've got 35 employees and we handle books for almost 800 small businesses around the country. So it's,
that's fun.
Just been on a roll and got a great team.
I love it. And I know too, the reason that, we were connected mutually through a connection within the franchising world, but I know that we started working together because of the way that you work with your clients and your customers. You create a great experience, and there was just a great alignment there, and also this desire to kind of educate and help franchisees and franchisors specifically understand how to bring in a third-party bookkeeping, accounting service so that they can be freed up to do other things, which we can get into. But I just know, I just love the story, how you guys started, and to see your growth, and then, kind of get to work with you has been really great. So that's been fun. Okay, talk a little bit about, maybe first of all, just very high level, what is it that Top to Bottom Business Solutions, what services do they provide? And then what do you see makes the brand and the company really unique in and then out of the franchising world?
Yeah, perfect. So I'll answer the second part of the question first. So what sets us apart, what I found that sets us apart is customer service. And when I say customer service. What I mean the most is client responsiveness. The number one issue we see in accounting firms, both involved in the franchise space and not in the franchise space, is when things get tough, when people have questions, who answers, who's responsive to them. And I think the way that we've kind of built our company around that being responsive, we may not always have the right answer. We may have to go to your tax preparer. We may have to, phone a friend to get the right answer. But one thing you'll never find is I can't get a hold of my account manager. Christopher's not answering his cell phone when I need him. So we really, really key on that aspect.
That's awesome. And again, that's why I really like this, because you know what? I actually almost see it as a bit of an advantage not being so widely entrenched in franchising yet, because it gives you the outside perspective of, okay, I'm coming in and you're looking at the franchisees as they are small business owners as well. And how can we help the franchisors? And to your point, it's not actually about what it is that you do, it's how you're doing it. And with that, the communication and the client experience, and building that for your people is amazing, because everyone says that they do it, but
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with the franchisor. I mean, the franchisee obviously needs help, but I think it's so important to not be in a position with the franchisor that they're just throwing leads over the wall to you. Like, we really want to be in more of a relationship with the franchisor, to the extent that, in a perfect world for us, we are helping, we are helping provide training support when they're bringing in a franchisee. And we can help build their chart of accounts. We can help get their financials set up. We can help, kind of help guide the franchisee on good practices with their accounting, because there's always going to be things that a good bookkeeping company, the franchisor, or the franchisee, they're always going to have different roles in having good financials. And sometimes the glue between the two goes missing when you grow fast.
Agreed. And it's also interesting because, and I want to know a little bit too about, a lot of things, but first of all, like what you're looking for in the brands, and I'm going to talk specifically about the franchising world now, but like what you're looking for from these franchise brands and their franchisees when you're looking at a partnership, and again, building the relationship. But I do think it's interesting what you touched on of, you want to build the relationship so people aren't just lobbing things over the fence. It's about the long term. It's about setting up for long-term success for the franchisees. Like that's the big vision. But I think sometimes that gets lost because, especially emerging brands, but again, this is across the board, their franchisors are so intent on selling the franchise, they can lose sight of the support. And yes, they might be providing a kind of the bare bones of support, or maybe even a bit more, but it's not always like first top of mind when it comes to accounting and bookkeeping, but that's part of the bigger vision. So do you want to speak a little bit to that, on not only what you're looking for with the brands you partner with, but just kind of that dynamic that you see when you're starting to work with the franchisors?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. I think that one of the things that have surprised me the most from getting into the franchise space, when we take on small business clients outside of the franchise space, or franchisees that we're not connected to the franchisor, we're taking on franchisees all the time that are just part of our normal growth. A lot of their stories are the same. My books are behind. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not getting supported. I feel like I'm losing a grasp on my business. I need to get a loan, and my financials aren't in a good spot. Those are the kinds of things that we're hearing. My books are 6 months behind, a year behind. I can't get my taxes. So when I started really getting into this franchise space and meeting franchisors, I was a little bit shocked, but also energized by the fact that a lot of smaller brands are sometimes they haven't grown enough yet to know that it's a problem, like enough of a problem put a stop to it, to say, okay, time out. We need to strongly suggest, or even, make our new franchisees have some bookkeeping service. It doesn't have to be mine. It could be one of 100 of them that are out there, but somebody to keep them on the yellow brick road so they don't, wander off into the woods.
And you think about it, and again, and I just kind of jotted down, like, this isn't a knock on the franchisor. As the franchisor, you are wearing so many hats. You want to bring in new franchisees to grow the system. Then you need to support them on the back end in, oh my gosh, how many ways are you doing that? Plus you're looking at the strategy for the company and what are you doing on develop, like, there's just so many things going on. But if, as a franchisor, you can be aware of different solutions to problems that maybe you aren't experiencing yet, but could be coming and would most likely be coming down the road, it happens with growth, then you can bring in help. And I think it is interesting. I don't know. I think sometimes franchisors, especially emerging brand, you're looking at your budget and stuff, and you're like, I can't afford this service, or I can't afford an in-house, person dedicated to this. I don't know that brands are aware that it's maybe not so much of a, big draw on investments, and in the long term, it's actually going to be so beneficial. Do you want to talk a little bit through how you work through some of those things? Like, let's say an emerging brand was coming to you and the obstacles that they have. How do you kind of work through that with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only way you can handle it is to not get too big headed about the situation, and that's me, right? I can't let my company get so big that I just say this is how we do things, and you have to deal with it. Because we're a relationship-based organization for now and forever, we want to talk to each franchisor individually and understand their needs. Franchisor A knows it's an issue, isn't sure how to tackle the problem. Franchise B doesn't believe it's an issue, and maybe isn't big enough yet to have seen it. Franchise C is like drowning and is like, I know I need it. Thank you for finding me. I'm so busy. Let's do this. Any of those are fine. And so I think every conversation has to be its own. So the good thing is the way we go about taking care of franchises, we don't bill franchisors, right? Our goal with them is to be involved as much of the education as possible, to support them in their growth, and to meet and get to work with the franchisees. That's our end client.
Yeah.
So however we set that up, whether it's a short introduction or a role in the training process, or doing a podcast or webinar for current franchisees, which we've done a handful of them just in the last 6 months, any of those things are just great ways that they can provide support without adding money to the bottom, to the top, or sorry, expenses to their books.
Yeah, no, and you know what I love too about this is, and I see that this is how I, as a franchisor, this is how I would want to start working as I'm building out my different maybe third party or the partners that I'm going to be working with to help me support my franchisees. I'm not going to do it all from within in-house. So I want to look for people who are not just transactional based, hey, let's do this number of franchisees for this cost, and it's all about the money, and it's all those things. I love that you guys take the education first. Let us be a part of your training. We obviously work together. We understand your brand. Let's chat through that. We can do that in a number of different ways. And then let's tailor what that looks like for your franchisees and at their different stages of growth as well. Not every franchisee is the same either. So I think that as a franchisor, that's exactly what I would want to be looking for in the partners that I'm bringing in.
Yeah, and I think all of this conversation, doesn't make sense unless you're talking about scale, right? A franchisor is thinking, I'm going to add 10 this year, 10 next year, 10 the year after that. I'm going to get to 50. I'm going to get to 100. And just like a small business owner that's trying to scale their business, every step of the way, new challenges present themselves, right? So you get to 50, you start with 0. You have 2 units going, and then you have 5, and you have 10. All of a sudden you need a sales, coach. And then you get to 25 or 30, and you're like, man, we're spending a whole lot of money on this CRM. Let's build our own. And then they build the CRM as they get to 50. And then they're like, wait a second, we got to get that CRM to talk to QuickBooks. Who's going to teach them? Who's going to teach the franchisees how to make all this work? And we're a part of two brands right now that are going through a CRM update with going to a new program. And we're able to help those franchisees get that work. Instead of them having to teach every single franchisee individually, our team can just go in and get it working. So there's other benefits, but again, it all kind of comes back to what's your long-term plan? Where are you trying to take it?
Yeah.
Take the business.
And again, I do think too, it goes back to franchisors not always being, it's not the top of their list to look at a bookkeeping or an accounting type of service for their franchisees. But I would encourage franchisors, like as you're looking at your long-term plan, what are some of those obstacles, not just around sales and development, but around some of that support for the franchisees? Because like you said, Chris, and you might have some other stories you want to share, you have those franchisors at different stages. And one is like, no, I'm drowning. Like, I wish I had talked to you a year ago.
Well, if you want to list important reasons why franchisees' books need to be in a good spot, just to name a handful. Yes. Reporting consistent information back to the franchisor so they can do their FTD every year. How about being able to, to talk to their coach and the coach having a fair chance at looking at financials of multiple locations and being able to have a logical conversation about it? How about so they don't have tax issues, sales tax or payroll tax issues? How about so when they need to go get a loan to buy another piece of equipment that the franchisor wants them to buy, they actually can submit paperwork to get it done? Or how about when you got a really good franchisee that you just found out they're trying to sell, and you want to find a really good person to put in their spot, and they don't have any financials, which they have to be able to get a deal done. I mean, we just, again, just from recent experience, met two new franchisors in the last month, and one of the main reasons they are bringing us in is because they've got 3 or 4 locations looking to sell, and their books are a mess. Right. So those are all things that down the line become a problem.
Yeah.
And whether it's us or somebody else, it's just good. It's just a good idea to kind of try to think ahead of that stuff if it's possible.
And as you're talking too, I'm like, okay, these are all things that actually everything is affecting something else. So let's say, someone doesn't have their P&Ls, now this is actually helping the entire sales and franchise development process, because now what are you able to say to candidates? Hey, we're providing amazing bookkeeping and accounting support right from the beginning. It doesn't matter if you don't know about QuickBooks. It doesn't matter if you've never run your own business. We're going to support you with that. And then when you want it, we'll keep everything in order. You're going to have amazing reporting. And then when you're ready to sell, you're going to have everything that you need. And it's going to help the franchisor in the long run be like, okay, great. You want to come to us? You have an exit strategy. Bring us the numbers. Bring us the everything. Everything's all good to go, and you don't have this headache of trying to go through paper receipts. I don't know.
Nope, it's spot on. And the last thing I would say would be, if you give me a franchisor that's really trying to is focused on growing their brand, and they've got 100 different hats to wear, right? You've got all these different things that are going on. If I had to think about in 6 months, I sign a new franchisee, and in 6 months, where do I want them to be? And I'm not talking about where their sales are. I'm talking about, do I want them spending 5 to 7 hours a week in the office doing bookkeeping work, or trying to clean something up, or figure out how this bank feed thing's supposed to work, or what's a reconciliation? Or do you want them spending an hour reviewing their reports and making decisions about, okay, it's time to hire. Okay, I need to go get some more sales. Where's the ROI for a franchisor that's trying to increase average unit sales?
Amazing.
They're not going to sell anything playing in QuickBooks, I can assure you.
Exactly. Well, I was thinking about someone like myself, haven't owned a business before, and just coming in, and my skill set is not in accounting and details and numbers, and I'm horrible at math. Like, so I coming in, I'd be like, oh my gosh, someone's gonna like do all this for me, and I get a nice little report, and it just makes it so much easier. Yeah, absolutely. Because it would take me, the average person is taking 5 to 7 hours a week. It would take me like 10 to 14 hours a week, and that's not where my strengths are best suited. So I think that's another excellent point for the franchisor.
Well, and to add on to what you're saying, I mean, think about, and not to just keep piling on.
No, this
think
is
about
good.
think about how many people leave the corporate world, and why does somebody choose to open a power washing franchise or a lawn care franchise or any kind of franchise for that matter, instead of starting on their own, right? Corporate support, dedicated region. They're going to wear the corporate, they're hoping that the franchisor is going to wear some of the hats for them, right? Because they don't know how to do marketing. They don't know how to, there's a bunch of stuff. They don't know how to wire a power washing machine to the back of a truck.
Right.
Like, they need that. They need somebody, they want that support system and to help them solve some of those problems. So I think dead on to your point. I mean, they're not good at accounting. They need to be focused on growing the people, which is the most important part of any organization, and then the brand, and those things are what their focus needs to be on. Coming from a business owner myself.
Yep, absolutely. And the fact that you actually do, you have that, the fast-paced restaurant industry background, seeing that whole, you're wearing so many hats, business owner yourself, it's it also brings in a great perspective on that side too. All right, I'm just reading through this. I think you covered a lot of these things, but is there anything else that you want to mention when it comes to working with franchisors? Is there anyone you look that you like to work with, or what should franchisors be aware of when starting to work with you? Like, what are you looking for? What to you is a great partner?
Yeah, no, we work with brands of different shapes and sizes, different growth perspectives. My preference is to work with brands that really have a solid, 3 to 5 year growth plan in place, and really know where they're headed with the brand. And I think by and large part, most franchisors, when you start to franchise, you kind of got a plan in place. So obviously somebody that places value on bookkeeping, bookkeeping and their books staying up to date. Again, some brands aren't quite there yet where they may be ready to pull the trigger on it. And somebody who communicates. One thing that you will learn about us pretty quickly is a lot of people in the bookkeeping space, when you get feedback from small business owners, franchisees, and small business owners alike, their complaint, I talked about this earlier, a complaint about their bookkeeper, their accountant, is responsiveness. We get way more feedback from our clients that we drive them nuts than the opposite. So I think what you'll find is we do a pretty effective job of getting things cleaned up that are messy, the process straightened out. So that's probably what I'd key on. Yep,
amazing. And as we're talking, it's like, why wouldn't, as a franchisor, why wouldn't you want to have that conversation? And that's why we at the Entrepreneurs have enjoyed partnering with you guys, because it's not transactional, it's not sales. It's really about, okay, let's just learn. Like, we are all about education, awareness, and discovery. We talk about it all the time with our clients and our coaches and franchisors. And I think it's the same when we're looking at, okay, how can a franchisor bring in a partner that's really going to be a great value add and truly a partner for the longevity of the franchise. And I think that's a really big thing to look at as well. Is it's about education, it's about learning what's possible with this, and even if it's not now, it's like, okay, now I know what my options are, so that in a year from now, when I have my next 15 franchisees and I'm ready to bring in a service like this, I know where to go. And it's just getting educated about those things. Because I think too, in the franchising world, there's a lot of vendors, there's a lot of suppliers and resources, and it can be hard to be like, where do I go? But I think as a franchisor, if you can say, okay, this is my 3 to 5 year growth plan, these are things that are important, and really look ahead, and then look for a partner who's going to customize and tailor the program for you and the franchisees, and can be a part of that support, that training. I think that's a big piece, and is really truly educational and customer focused, and the response time and very communicative, collaborative. Then that would definitely check off a lot of boxes.
Yeah, and whether if there's a franchisor out here listening to this at some point in the future, if you've got just a couple of franchisees that they know the ones that are behind in reporting their financials, or they're reporting financials that make people scratch their head, like, they know who they are. If they need, if there's one-off situations in the organization that there's cleanup needed, or if they've got a franchisee who's left and they need the books cleaned up, we're happy to come in and help get that stuff straightened out, kind of prove our worth. But remember, our goal is to never, we want to be nothing but a support for the franchisor. We're not billing them by the hour for every time that they reach out to us. We do a lot of free consulting kind of stuff to help shape process, because process is what makes bookkeeping affordable.
Love it. I love all this. Okay, so as we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share, or takeaways when it comes to this space of accounting and bookkeeping and payroll and all of these things, or the support to franchisees, that people should be aware of, whether it's now or just things coming in the future that you see within this space that would be good to know about?
I think I've seen a lot of synergy around some of these dashboard reporting programs that I would say medium-sized franchisors are starting to invest in, to be able to see financials at their fingertips, have their financials at their fingertips. And when I say them, I'm talking about most of the revenue categories and some of the expense stuff that they want to see at a moment's notice. And so those programs require mapping to accounting software. And for those brands today that are thinking about, man, I'd love to be able to see, sales of the different things that we sell at any given time, and to be able to pull a report for it and see it across the brand. The first thing that has to happen is we've got to get the franchisees' books normalized. And if you've allowed for the franchisees to build their own chart of accounts and to set their books up their own way, there's work that's going to need to be done on the ground. And I would just keep that in consideration as they think about ways to continue to modernize the franchisor, the franchisor of today.
Okay. That is a great tip right there. Again, it's like all the little pieces that you're looking, like you kind of can have a bit of a blinders on, because you're like, okay, now we need a CRM and now we need to do development. But it's like, okay, just expand it for a little bit and see what other pieces are going to be impacted, and how can you minimize extra work down the road by implementing some of those things now, as you're building out a CRM, or changing processes, or putting processes in place, or that type of thing. So Chris Mallery, thank you so much for joining Franchise Friday.
Thank you so much for having me, Melissa.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.